In the previous lecture, we have added code to the router class, which parses the request line and gets languages, controller, and other parameters from it. For this data to be used, we have to create app class, which is responsible for request processing and which calls controller methods. Let's create app class PHP file in the lib directory. And in this file, we also create app class, name of which is equal to application. In this class, we add static router attribute in order to work with router object. We also add getter for this attribute in order to get object. This attribute is static since we need only one router in the application. Then we create static public run method, which is responsible for the processing of requests to application. It receives URI as a parameter. This parameter is used for creating router object. The access to it may be received with the help of router attribute of the app class. According to this, we may get router object from any place of the application code just calling getRouter method of the app class. There may be a lot of controllers in the application, and all of them must extend one basic controller class. Let's create such a class. We add controller class PHP file to the lib directory. In this file, we create controller class. We add 3 general attributes of the class with protected access level in order to use them in child classes. The first attribute is data attribute. It contains all the data which is delivered from the controller to the view. The next attribute is module attribute, used for the access to module object. The one more attribute is params, in which parameters received from the request are stored. For each of these attributes, we add getters: get data, get module, and get params. And for now, we may start creating constructor of the class. The constructor of the controller class may receive initial data with data as a parameter. If constructor is called without extra parameters, data contains empty array. Then we write request parameters in the params attribute, which we get from the router object. For this purpose, we call app-getRouter and then get params. The constructor is done. Now we may start creating the first real controller. This controller is responsible for displaying simple side pages such as About Us, for example. It is named as Pages controller. Remember that in the application settings it is defined as default controller. We create Pages controller PHP file in the controllers directory. Then we create Pages controller class in this file using camel case denomination, in which first letters of each word are capital. This class extends controller class, that's why we specify extends controller. We add first method, which is index. In our case, it outputs the list of pages. If controller works, it outputs the line which is, here will be a pages list. Later, we'll develop this method. We may continue developing app class in such a way that it could create the essential controller object and call the needed method. This is its central mission. For this purpose, we need to get the name of controller class and the name of method. We declare controller class variable and write the name of class in it. The name is built with the help of camel case, that's why we get the capitalized controller name with the help of UCFirst function and add to it the word controller, which is also capitalized. We write the method name in the controller method variable. Methods of our project are named using lowercase, that's why we use strto lower function. The needed value consists of prefix and method name. We get them with the help of getMethod prefix and getAction of router class. On getting the name of controller class and the name of its method, we may create controller object and call method by its name. We create object with the help of new controller class construction. It's a powerful capability of PHP to access variables, methods, classes on the fly, which means that their names are known by the time script works and that they reside in variables. In order to guard against errors, we make test for method existence with the help of method exists function. We specify controller object and method name as a parameter. If method exists, we put down the result of its implementation in the result variable. Now it's time to use app class in its run method. We replace our test code in the index.php file with run method call. We pass request URI as a parameter, the same as for router. We open browser and test the application functioning. With the HTTP localhost request, we get "here will be a pages list" line. This is exactly the line which index method of the pages controller class outputs. This is because pages controller is chosen by default controller and index method is chosen by default method. Since no root, no controller, and no method is specified in the request, application uses default values. We go to localhost pages index. The result must be the same, since controller and method are the same. We specify languages in the request line. The result must be also the same. We just check whether the application works correctly in all cases. And what would happen if we tried to request non-existent action? Let's write localhost pages view in the address line. In the pages controller there is no view method. That's why our test for method existence activates and it is not called. But it would be more correct if we throw exception in this case. Let's add this to app class. After testing for the method existence, if method doesn't exist, we throw exception with the message "method of class does not exist." We check whether everything works as conceived. We refresh page. As we can see, we received fatal error and the message about the uncaught exception. Then we add admin root to address line, as if we wanted to get access to admin panel. As we can see, the method now is called admin view. This means that the method is defined correctly. We go to localhost pages view about address. In this case, about is the request parameter, which is an alias of the page. About us page text is outputted at this address in our case. After we have checked that application responds correctly to various requests, we should create view method in the pages controller class. Don't forget that all such controller methods must have public scope. The first thing that we have to get in this function is alias of the needed page. Alias is the request parameter, and as a consequence we get it with the help of getParams method of our router. Then we check whether the first parameter is set with the help of isSet function. If so, the alias is its value in lowercase. For the purpose of testing, we output the line "here will be a page with alias" with requested alias. Concerning the exception catching, it must be said that all the exceptions which appear in the application must be caught in the index.php file. This is your home assignment. We go back to browser, refresh page, and see that everything works as conceived. In the next lecture, we'll add views and start using them.